Hello, and again, welcome to Bit Depth. I'm Santiago Ramones. Across from me is...
Jackson Fritts.
How's it going, man?
It's going good. It's going really good, actually.
Yeah. So a little backstory. We recorded two podcasts, last year.
Something about some.
Yeah.
I think it would be last year.
But I was like on a trip, and I was like doing some file management, and messing with a laptop in the car, just not reading very well, and reading files off of a flash drive or an external drive on a PC. Whenever you like press delete, it's a permanent delete because the external drive doesn't have a recycle bin on it. And so I was just like clearing space on the drive, but the folder that was containing those two podcasts was permanently deleted because I'm a stupid. And I was like, man, this is the worst.
It happens. There have been moments where I'll do Microsoft Office Word or something, which begs the question: how do you delete Microsoft Office Word? There's been files I don't even know how I deleted, and when I found out they were deleted, I was furious. Like I used to have this old flip camera, and I made a ton of videos on that damn thing. When I uploaded it to my computer, it wiped out everything.
Oh,
and
man.
There was a storm of just anguish and fury. I was so mad because I had a bunch of stuff I was wanting to upload to YouTube. Anyway, that's another story.
Yeah. Yep. Computers. That's what we deal with. Anyways, how do we know each other?
We know each other, and I don't know if I can tell you the specific class, but I know
Songwriting 1?
It very well could have been Songwriting 1 because I know we've had at least Songwriting 2 together. We've had financial classes together with Mr. Scott Keaton. That class was a hoot and a holler. And we had music theory. No, we had Introduction to the Music Industry with Sephra.
Yeah.
And I believe that's how we met.
Okay, yeah.
Or like we slightly conversed,
Right.
I'd see you and you'd come in all nicely dressed and everything.
Oh, yeah, because that class is on a Thursday.
Yeah, it was a cool little class.
Yeah, that is how we know each other. So, start my actual first question. What do you do?
Well, right now, I'm going to school here at ACM, obviously, and I'm majoring in bass performance as of right now, and I'm doing live performance classes and everything. And outside of school, I'm trying to make as much music as I can. I'm working on a EP right now where I'm going to be doing all the instrumental parts and all the vocal parts, what little vocal parts there are. And I'm working bass. I'm working Moog synthesizer. I just got a bunch of mixed percussion instruments like Indian percussion like tablas. Got some bongos, and I can play a little bit of guitar on the side too. So, what other project I did over the summer, which is like metal, like doom metal and stuff, like the really slow stuff, and then the really fast stuff, like hardcore punk, really guttural stuff. I'm trying to do different stuff like ambient and electronic, and then like what little knowledge of world music I can pull out from that influence. I'm trying to do it there on that EP. And basically what I'm doing right now in life is, other than the basic education stuff, I'm just trying to make as much music as I can.
Yeah.
In a simple put way.
Yeah. Making music. That's what we do here at ACM. So what was the first instrument that you played, or the first musical thing that you started on?
Oh man, that's a fun one, because technically, if I were to say what was the first musical instrument I ever took seriously, that'd be bass guitar. But the first thing I ever piddled around with was my friend's Mexican Fender Stratocaster over at his apartment. I would go over there and I'd say, "Hey man, can I play your guitar?" By that I mean just mindlessly strum. I just wanted to. It just looked fun. I don't know what got me interested in it. And it's not like I had, I actually wanted to learn songs. I just wanted to play around, And so I'd go over his house and strum it mindlessly. And I'd turn on it was a Line 6 Spider 3, I think. And I'd turn on the echo and the distortion and just, pretty much just
Makes noise.
yeah, excuse my language, musically wank, and make noise. And it wasn't until a few years later that I picked up the bass guitar, and I found a bass guitar at my friend's house. This was a different friend too, and I just found it in his closet, and I said, "Hey, can I look at that?" Because I had messed around with guitars before, and it looked different. Had these big 4 thick strings. I didn't know what the hell a bass was really. And he goes, "Sure." I started strumming it, open. He goes, "That's not how you play a bass." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You pick it with your fingers." I go home that night and I look up, what bass guitar is, and I say, "Oh, it's that instrument." And I began to distinguish, what was the bass out of the songs I had really liked at the time. And one of them was Psycho Killer by the Talking Heads.
Nice.
I heard that just simple, boom, 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 and I was like, maybe I could do that. So I'd go over almost every day to my friend's house and ask if I could play his bass guitar. Eventually he says, "Hey, man, I took one day of bass lessons. Do you want that bass?" And I said, "Yeah, how much would you charge for it?" And he goes, "You can have it for free, honestly." And I said, no, I got to pay you something. And he goes, $10. I run back to my house. I get up $10 and change, and I go to his house. I take the damn thing home. It was a PV precision, or not PV, sorry, J. Tercer precision bass. And for some reason, I didn't want my parents to know that I had bought a guitar at the time. I didn't even have an amp. And I would put it under my bed. And finally, I told them, and they didn't mind, But
until you got an amp.
I asked for an amp for Christmas, and this was the PV comes in. I got a small practice PV amp, and that's where I dick around on some songs, these bastardized bass lines. I thought I was playing the right thing, barely, And like I tried Psycho Killer, I tried Blitzkrieg Bop, and it wasn't until I learned Sunshine of Your Love, that riff, where I was like, I think I want to do this as a hobby instead of just kind of mess around, like actually see if I can learn full songs. And when I started to get better at the bass, I got a Fender Jazz Bass, American Standard 2012 edition for Christmas, and that's where things kind of started to take off. Forgive me for that long explanation.
Oh,
though.
No, it's great. So what were you listening to that sort of flourished your musical interest? Because, you're picking up instruments, you're strumming on them, and so obviously music is already important to you. So what were you listening to then?
Before I really started playing bass, I was just listening to, I was just now getting into stuff like Pink Floyd, because I knew the radio hits, but I became interested in the full albums that came behind them, that the stuff that didn't get radio play. So I pretty much became obsessed with Pink Floyd, and I downloaded almost their entire discography, and I became like a big Pink Floyd fan. And then my friend got me into Rush and Led Zeppelin, like their all their discography and stuff, and I became a big fan of them. And I started noticing, with Geddy Lee and Rush, how prominent those bass lines were, and how creative. They were up in the mix. You could actually hear them, as opposed to some other songs where the bass is really turned down. And that increased my interest in bass. And I started learning about like the bass players themselves, like John Paul Jones, Jack Bruce of Cream, and all that stuff. And then my music taste, band-wise, started to change. In high school, I learned about the Velvet Underground. I learned about the Stooges. Punk, Black Flag, all this music that was.
Yeah, you're wearing a Black Flag shirt right now.
Yeah, My War. That's one of the best album artworks. I can't talk right now. It's one of the best cover arts I've ever seen. I love it. Anywho, I started getting into more obscure stuff that was just like I never heard it on the radio. It was ugly. It was mean. It was dissonant, and I loved it. Part of the reason I loved it was because no one ever told me about it. It's like this. It's like my little special. rock I found out in the backyard. No one told me about it. Something like some silly analogy like that.
Right.
And I got a record player and I started collecting. I cannot talk today. I started collecting records, and it just flourished from there. I started, YouTube helped a lot. Suggested, oh, you might like this. Oh, what's this? Something like some German band or Italian band or something. And I started getting into like the weird stuff. Like my taste grew. I started getting into like prog rock, like King Crimson and Yes, Gentle Giant and all that kind of stuff. And then, when I started going here to ACM, like my friend Chase Hampton, who's been on Santiago's podcast, he educated me about like the krautrock movement, and I started getting into stuff like Can, and then Noi, Cluster, all this crazy stuff that came out of Germany that I had never even thought about, and it's continually growing because there's so much music out there. Whether it's old or it's new, there's always something that flew underneath the radar, and it's kind of a niche thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, because, like, how old are you?
I just turned 22.
Right. So, like, for 22, you're listening to some old-ass music.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Stuff that, and I guess my music range genuinely, and not that I refuse to listen to stuff before the 60s, but, like, my music range, and I listen to a lot more new music or in recent areas than I used to, But I'd say my music range, as a good majority of what I listen to, is 60s to now. And then occasionally like a 50s jazz record or something like early Miles Davis or something like that, And my music tastes have expanded a lot. Like now I've become less, and not that I don't go back to the classics and stuff, because I used to love like AC/DC, like Bon Scott era AC/DC, and I still do, if I'm in the mood for it. But now I've become less interested in rock and roll and more interested in like electronic stuff or experimental or rock that is infused with non-rock elements. Like there'll be rock and roll instruments, guitar, bass, drums, but they play stuff that's influenced by African music or reggae or whatever it is, krautrock influence, whatever it may be. I've just been really on they call it post-punk or like I was saying, the krautrock movement back in the 60s. I've been on a big kick of that recently. And electronic stuff too, like Tangerine Dream and Cluster and all these other great groups, like proto-industrial. Like just stuff has just been blowing my mind recently. Like, the things that inspired like Trent Reznor, like Throbbing Gristle and Coil and stuff like that. And it's just blown my mind. And ever since I've got a Moog synthesizer, I've been trying to get the most gross noises I can get out of that thing.
So then at what point did you decide I want to do music as my life?
Probably when I really started to get decent at bass. Excuse me. Good Lord. I learned the first song I think I really nailed was the bass line for Rock the Casbah. Because that's a creative bass line. The drummer wrote it too. He went into the studio and did like the bass part, the drum part of course, and then the piano part, and then Joe Strummer wrote the lyrics over it. And when I finally heard that bass line, I looked up the isolated track. It is a very funky, satisfying melodic bass line. Play with the pick too, and it sounds incredible. And I remember after I learned that, I was just like, I think I know what I want to do with my life now. Or it gave me purpose of some kind. It felt like it was the first thing I'd ever done right, in a sense. Not to get too sappy, but it gave me great pleasure that I felt like I could learn these bass lines, and put up covers on YouTube or whatever.
Sure.
And stuff like that. And it was a little bit of time down the road when I'd want to do original music,
Yeah. So then what's your goal ultimately?
My goal right now, excuse me if I'm repeating myself a lot, but it's just to release as much music as I can because I have archives and archives of just demos on my laptop and my phone, riff ideas, melody ideas, beat and rhythm ideas, all this stuff. I have a whole album set up in my mind that I know what songs I want to do for that, or a majority of them, and like my goal is just to get as much stuff of that as I can out. All I want to do right now is play music and make music, and then whatever other hobby I want to do, is secondary, like reading or writing, or like writing. I also like to write short stories when I can. I think that's a lot of fun. Cool. Yeah, pretty much. Just I want to make as much music as I can before I kick the bucket.
Well, I mean, you're still young. You got time to make a whole bunch of music. So I mean,
let's hope, brother.
So do you write songs like with words? I always make that distinction between like writing music and then writing songs. When you have words, there's a different mindset going into whenever you're putting words into music.
Yeah, and kind of vice versa.
Yeah,
like which comes first, the music or the lyrics?
Yeah.
It just depends because there's just sometimes I'll be driving and I'll think, oh, that set of words sounds really cool. I'll write that down. Maybe I can make a song out of it, or maybe I'll have a melody in my head. A lot of times it's usually the riff or the beat that comes first, and I build off of it. Or maybe I'll have a beat that I made up in some lyrics that I wrote a while ago. And if the lyrics aren't too shitty or the riff isn't too shitty, then I can work with something, And I'll go back in my archives and stuff like, oh yeah, I want to take this riff and I'll put it with that. And sometimes it's just very spontaneous. Like literally, a lot of times how riffs come about is just literally me sitting down with my bass and trying, like, well, if my fingers go in this pattern, what will it do? And sometimes there'll be a melody that I thought of in my head, and I'll be able to create that. But usually, the riffs are created just by me sitting down and playing a pattern. Just doodling around. Oh, that sounds cool. We'll keep that. And hopefully I can build on that pattern. And then with lyrics, it's like used to be I would it was kind of the thing of if I had lyrics, oh, this melody will do. I was very complacent about it. This will do. Now it's more like I want to hear notes that sound good to me and don't sound too lazy or boring or whatever.
Right.
Or maybe it's too busy, or maybe I want a more minimalistic thing, or maybe I want it to be a little bit busy in this part. It just depends what the mindset is and what I've been inspired by. That will result in that.
Yeah. So what are you writing about?
Pretty much, I used to not know what I would want to write about. What little I do write lyrics for, because I do more instrumental stuff than I do, lyrics. Songwriting. But I still love to sing, even though I can barely sing. I know I could do it, but I'm just not professional. I don't really do vocal lessons. I'll just, say, well, try this vocal take out, and if it sounds good, it sounds good. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Sometimes it's even better if it doesn't sound good to me, because it's its own thing, What was I going to say? I was going to say that, what do I write about? Okay. I'll often write about personal experiences that have happened to me, or my viewpoint on an experience that's happened to me. Maybe I can write from anything to something, making me mad. How original is that? Or maybe something that someone said to me that kind of bothered me, and I want to write about that because, sometimes I'll be frustrated and I'll be caught up in my own mind about something that somebody said. I'm very self-conscious. I think about stupid things that don't even matter sometimes. And sometimes I'll say, well, maybe I can let this go in the form of a song. And I'll write about it, as an outlet. And it can go from that or like just making up some creepy story that I would originally put in a short story or something and put it into song form or something like that, like a fantasy work. I used to just do that. It's just write fantasy stories into song form, because I didn't have anything. I didn't have any great political thought to express, I didn't have any profound thing to say about life, or I didn't feel like I did. But now what it's more leaning towards, I guess, excuse my drawn out explanations of everything. I
I love it.
I ramble. Basically, what I was saying is like I'm just any little experience I have that I think could be used to put into a song. I'll use that, or a fictional story. If sometimes there's just songs I write that don't even need to mean anything. I just like the way they sound, and you can make up your own interpretive thing. It just depends what mood I'm in,
right?
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah, anything that I like that sounds good and it feels good, and I pretty much the way I look at it is even if the song means something or not, if I like how it sounds sonically, if I think it has soul, if I'm satisfied with it, I will put it out, and I will be content with it.
Yeah. Here's a question that Chase actually asked me: is rock dead?
Is rock dead? A lot of people say that punk's dead, and the thing is, just like people say the apocalypse is going to come, they've been saying it for years. I guess that's a silly comparison, but it depends how you look at it. Yes, we have reached a point where so many riffs have been done, so many ideas have been taken. There have been theories that I haven't looked into that say, we're going to run out of ideas for music, and it is all pretty spooky, I suppose. Is rock dead? Who's going to be there's no more Beatles, there's no more Zeppelin, there's no more Pink Floyd, boo-hoo, all great rock is dead, but I don't think it's dead. I think as long as people have a will to search for something and to work hard and to release what they feel inside, even if you don't like it or not, whether when there's a will, there's a way. I think that there's a lot, I'm not going to go out and say like, I think, there's as many like crazy stuff going on as there was in the 60s. Because at the time of the 60s and 70s and stuff like that, there were a lot of stuff coming out that no one had heard of before. Like guys, like I was saying, in Germany, like guys like, Dieter Mobius and Hans Rodelius, got these two gentlemen from this band called Cluster, this German group. Just two guys with synthesizers, guitars, and stuff. They were making stuff no one had ever heard of before. Them. And the people in Cannes that were combining elements of, like a James Brown beat with some Vietnamese style riff over it, or whatever. And Pink Floyd, the concept album, The Who, Tommy. I wouldn't say there's much originality, but by God, man, people still have balls. The underground scene of some Italian metal group I like, is releasing good music now. The rock and roll spirit is still there. There's still good punk groups. Is it the most original thing? Probably not, but damn, it's exciting. And occasionally, we'll boost Chase's ego a step further here. He said that Death Grips is probably his favorite group now, and I'd say those people are making some of the most original music I've heard today.
Yeah.
And hell, I prefer them a lot more than, your Cat FM.
Whatever other,
Yeah, and not to trash those people. Like, I just don't, there's a lot of new rock music, mainstream rock music, that I don't care for as much now. It's like, this term comes around a lot, butt rock.
Yeah.
That's fine. People are making it. They're having a good time. That's great. But I'd much rather listen to some, and not just because it's rare underground or whatever, but there's a lot of good underground music now. There really is a lot. And I don't know much about the technicality of it or what's popular, what's not, whatever. I know I'm almost positive there's more music being made now. It's more accessible.
Mhm.
You can most likely make your own label now. You can most likely get a gig. Because back in the 70s, punk was the hard thing to get a gig, apparently. Not that I lived that time, but hearing interviews with all the, like Mike Watt from the Minutemen and, Henry Rollins from Black Flag and stuff like that, it was hard to, go to a venue or a bar
Right.
where you could play your own original stuff because people would be like, boo, we want the Eagles covers and,
Right.
Fleetwood Mac. Nowadays, you go to damn VZDs or 89th Street Collective, they'll
Yeah.
be happy to have you playing that
Yeah.
angry, angsty young man music.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd say, well, I don't think rock is dead. I will say I feel like it's definitely harder to be original now.
Mm.
It definitely is because, whatever you're playing, I'm sure an interval or something in your subconscious has been pooped out of another song that you love, and you might not even realize it.
Right.
It's very hard. Excuse me, I'm going to fidget just a minute and cross my legs here. I don't think rock is dead, but I do, like I was saying, I do think it is a lot harder to be original now.
Yeah.
Spirit's still there though. I still think we got good spirit going on. Just depends what you listen to. If you're bored with the radio, then go on YouTube, go on Spotify, go on SoundCloud, Bandcamp. Go to your Uncle Larry's house, dig up a few records from his record crate. You might find something you like.
Yeah.
Never heard of in the Ukraine or Vietnam. Who knows?
Yeah.
Music all over the place.
That's what I think, like, the future kind of is that you got to combine the styles. You get something new.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah, like, I mean, if you're gonna like cite old, in the 60s and 70s, people were taking guitars and messing with synthesizers. It's like, yeah, well, the synthesizers were over there and the guitars were over there, and people were like, hey, let's put these things together. Yeah. And nowadays, it's like, oh, well, guitars and synthesizers, like, come on, we've all heard Radiohead. Get out of here. Like,
yeah, or Yes, or
yeah,
stuff like that. But I think it's absolutely, brilliant what some of these bands did and are still doing. Like Death Grips are, and I'm not even the biggest like Death Grips fan. I've only listened to one album, but it floored me. It reminded me of some of the stuff I was hearing in the 70s and 80s that were post-punk or experimental. That they combine elements that aren't usually to get there together. One great group I could, and I'll keep this short, like Can from Germany, Popol Vuh. They combined the idea of not only tribal music, like African music, or South American music with their use of mixed percussion, bongos and tablas, but they also had a Moog synthesizer. So you were hearing these just crazy like combinations of sound. Not only that, but the composer Florian Frick, he ended up quitting the electronic stuff and just going like back to his classical roots and acoustic roots. So he'd make these piano compositions, but he also had his own avant-garde touch.
Yeah.
So when you're making music, never be afraid to step outside that boundary.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to do that. I'm still trying to think, what are some very and I'm trying not to be just strange for the sake of being strange. But,
Right.
What if I combine, I don't know, the sounds of because what I like to do now is I'll go around my house. I have these two xylophone mallets, hardwood xylophone mallets, and I'll hit different, like there's a silverware holder on my table, my dining room table, or not silverware holder, napkin holder. It's metal. I hit different parts of it. There's different pitches that come out of it. It's a pitch percussion instrument. Anything can be an instrument. Add that into the music, and you'll have a blast.
Exactly.
And I know that's been done before, but there's so many possibilities.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of junk you can hit on.
Exactly. Like, literally. Like those people in Germany, let's beat on this trash can or cement
Right.
mixer. You know, we'll get something out of that.
Yeah.
Let's mess with it, turn it an octave down, the frequency. You know,
Yeah.
God knows.
Run into Hobby Lobby. There's a bunch of stuff to to smash in there.
wind chimes, God knows what.
Yeah. So turning to our different set of questions here. As you know and are familiar with, for the less comfortable questions, what is the role of spirituality or religion in your life?
Well, I don't want to sugarcoat it too much, but I also don't want to sound like a damn nihilist. God. I don't want to discourage anyone when I say this. I don't want to put anyone in fear.
This is your opinion.
Yeah. A lot of it is fear, honestly, because it's kind of the fear of the unknown. I'd like to think I do believe in a God, and I don't know if he's the Buddhist God. I don't know if he's a Christian God. I don't know if he's the Hebrew God or whatever. Excuse me if I got my terminology wrong, because Hebrew and Christianity often go hand in hand, or I think they do. So I'm sure there's someone out there that could school me on it. But anywho, a lot of it is fear, because I've always had a fear that there is a hell, or heaven or whatever, And the thing is, I feel like people, and there's nothing wrong with it. Some of it is just, jealousy that I don't have the same hope that they do. But a lot of people seem very certain, oh, there isn't a God. Oh, there is a God. Oh, God's loving. Oh, God is hateful. It's like we don't know until we die. We don't. And a lot of people, a lot of people seem just too certain about some things. And I'm just like, well, how do we know? And I want to be more positive. I want to be more hopeful, but God, what I would do to be less fearful, But I also have to remind myself when I get afraid of stuff like the afterlife, I also have to remind myself, what if I'm wrong? What if the fear I have is wrong? It very well could be. And I hope it is. I hope that if there is a God, I hope that he is chill. I hope he's very forgiving and very kind, and doesn't get on to me for minor things like, having a drink at a bar or some minor sin, because I wasn't even raised by strictly religious parents. Like both my parents are, Christian or whatever, but they never put any fear into me or anything.
Right.
My dad's a little conservative, but he's never been, like, you must go to church every Sunday or,
Sure.
something like out of like an edgy comic or something, or
Right.
a John Lennon song or something. No, none of that. It was the own fear I put into my head watching stuff on the History Channel or YouTube about, this guy died and said he went to hell. And I was like, oh, my God, that's terrifying. That's absolutely terrifying. So a lot of my anxiety is based off dying and, what happens after I die. And, because people will tell you different, oh, nothing's going to happen. Same person or a different person will tell you, oh, you need to be saved or so-and-so. And it's like, y'all seem very certain. How certain can we be on that type of stuff? So I'm just at the point where I just don't know. I wish I did, but I just don't. I just don't know. I don't know if I need to be more spiritual. I don't know if it doesn't matter. I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, what works for you? Since you have this general fear of an unknown sort of judgment, how does that dictate your behavior?
I'm trying to cuss less because I don't know if there is a God, if he cares about cussing. It seemed very stupid if he did, but I also had a friend a wonderful friend of mine. We call each other, it's kind of cheesy, but we call each other soul brothers and we still do love each other very much, but he went a very different path, and I don't really get to see him anymore often enough, but he believes in a God named Yahweh, and he's gone completely off the grid. He lives in a house with no electricity, and he lives with two other gentlemen, People put him down. I don't put him down, but the things he's told me about his belief is that, a lot of stuff everyone's being told are lies, and that that this God he believes in is like the one true for him. And even that I had doubt with, And he told me that's good because he is an open-minded guy. That may not sound like it to some people, but he always told me, believe in what you believe in and stand up for yourself, keep an open head and stuff like that. But that's the path he went on. So I'd say, I don't want to derive too much. I'd say that with some of the fears I have, like sometimes I'll be like, maybe I shouldn't say that, or, maybe I should be more forgiving. And I think that is a good moral to have. But I also don't want my complete moral dictation to be based on a God or whatever, or not, I want my moral dictation to come from my own heart and doing what's right because it's the right thing to do. And I do have faith that I have that. And I'm not just being puppeteered by the fear of an afterlife, or the promise of good. I'd like to think that I try to be a good person because that's the good thing to do. And I think everyone has that in them. I really do. So in some ways it dictates, like, I don't know, like maybe I do need to, be more forgiving, less angry or whatever, maybe I shouldn't smoke and drink or whatever, there is a little bit of that religious fear. I do believe, or I know it's there, but for the most part, even though I'm very fearful, I'd still sin a lot. I still, but technically, I still cuss a lot. I still, make a dark joke here and there and have a laugh about something, naughty or whatever, something like that. It's just some very God-fearing people that'd be, that's blasphemous or whatever. But, as a treating other human beings right, I'd like to believe that comes from the heart, and that's what should be done. Because if I feel like I've done someone wrong, it will come back to haunt me and I'll feel bad about it. So I'm glad I have that conscience there.
Yeah.
Keep me in check.
I mean, you talk about like right and wrong, but like where is your right? Where is your wrong? And because like you say, it's like coming from your heart. So like, how do you know whenever you've like done something right or wrong?
I feel like when I've done something wrong, I've hurt somebody in some way. Maybe even if I do say something, even if whatever opinion I may have, if I say something that hurts someone at the end of the day, even if it doesn't show that I've hurt them, or even if they aren't bothered by it in the slightest, I'll have my conscience will bother me all day, and I'll be like, oh man, maybe I did something bad, maybe I did something to hurt that person, and 9 times out of 10 I will apologize. I apologize every day. It's been a habit since my early childhood. If I bump into someone slightly, I'm sorry about that, and I'm trying to get better because I don't want to be overly apologetic, and I've had confidence grow over the years, but stuff like that, if I hurt someone or I feel like I've hurt somebody, at first I may be angry, let's say, some guy cuts me off in traffic or someone gets mad at me and I think, oh, that motherfucker, But then at the end of the day, like just the other day, some guy was rude to me at a restaurant. I won't go into that. But I got really mad. And I've promised myself I will not resort to violence unless I have to defend myself, Anywho, I was just mad. I was thinking about it, oh, that motherfucker this, that motherfucker that. Excuse my language. I was just very angry, and I was just like, just kind of pouty, kind of like, oh, screw that guy. But then I thought, I don't need to be so angry because maybe the guy had a rough day. Maybe, he's human too. No matter how mad I get at people, even the people that I don't want to be around, I wish them well at the end of the day. I would never wish death or harm on another individual, because even if they treated me wrong. Because I think every human being has some sort of value and redeemable quality. And I think that's beautiful when even the worst people can turn around. Like, I got pretty choked up about that shit because I know there's good in people. Even the worst people, I know there's good in. So even though someone did something minor, something to piss me off, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. When I try to think about it, when I get in an argument with one of my family members or one of my siblings, I try to think, at the end of the day, it's just ego. bullshit. You know, it can be. You know, I'm right, they're wrong, they're, you know, whatever it is, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. And that's part of one of my problems in life is trying to just relax and think what someone else thinks of me in certain scenarios doesn't matter, and that what matters is that without going too hippie into this, you know, is that love is a very important part of my life, and it should be my goal to love more than hate or despise or whatever that, and I think that's more important. You know, once again, sorry I go on tangents.
No, I like it.
These poor people. If there's anyone that's going to listen to this podcast, they're probably going to be like, "Oh, good Lord." I talk a lot.
No, I mean, it's good. It also makes it easier on me because you answer questions that I might have asked anyways. So it's like, great. Like, I'm getting more answers from you anyways. But yeah, I do really like that. I'm sure you know by now, or at least the listener knows by now, that my like 3 things, so I resonate a lot with that. So then going into there's the 2 questions that I try to ask. One you've already answered, which I just asked God ? But you're like, I don't know, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you also said like you do.
I do believe in it, but like in terms of like the dictation of spirituality and what I am, there's certain elements that I'm like, okay, I do act that way because of it, but there's also like I just don't know at the end of the day.
Sure.
It's very, there's a lot of gray areas, we'll put it that way.
Okay. And then free will ?
Free will. There's a lot of free will involved, you know.
I mean, just like, do you believe in free will?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, once again, I don't want to get too religious, but I think, you know, like the Christian Bible says, you know, God put you here on the earth or whatever, you know, he's going to let you do what you want, but if you know, don't have too fun, because there might be a little hot place waiting for you. And that's pretty spooky to me, you know. I do believe in free will because, you know, if I wanted to, and not saying I would ever do this, but if I wanted to go drive my car off a bridge, I could, you know, something terrible like that, you know, I do have the free will to do that. There's nothing to if I want to go rob a bank, I could, but I don't want to do that. That's horrible. I don't want to put people in fear or take people's money or, you know, ruin a bridge, or, ruin my car or something, you know. But no, I definitely do believe in free will. Was that kind of the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then going into more of like the political side. I mean, you listen to a lot of punk music and stuff.
Absolutely. I love punk and post-punk and not pop punk though. Pop punk makes me very angry.
Well, yeah, some of your favorite bands like Black Flag and Fall Out Boy and
Sorry. Man.
But so there's a lot of fighting the power.
Right.
So how do you feel about the general fight the power kind of stuff?
There are great elements of it. But there are also very pretentious and biased sides to it, regardless of the political ideology. And even if I don't agree with, I don't know, what Black Flag says or Rage Against the Machine says, if that beat hits me in the stomach and I just want to, you know, like it allows me to express myself via dance or inspiration, maybe I want to cover that song on bass. If the sonic elements are there, then I'll love it regardless, you know. You know, the message doesn't always have to resonate with me, you know, whether I disagree or agree with it or whatever. But it's usually, you know, and I won't go into politics too much unless you ask me a question about it. But
I'm specifically asking you about politics.
Okay, I got you. Both political spectrums, you know, and I don't hate people, but certain political spectrums have 2 extremes, and I know that's an answer that a lot of people I'm sure have. I'm very neutral politically. Both political spectrums annoy me to no end, you know, because I think both sides have very equally pretentious people on them, you know. And once again, I don't wish anyone harm. I don't. But like, I'll just see things that kind of irk me or whatever. And that's another thing is, the certainty thing, even with religion, with politics too. What makes you so certain that this candidate is so perfect, whether they're the conservative or they're liberal or they're libertarian or they're black tree worshiper, I don't know. Whatever they may be, no one's perfect. No one is perfect. And I feel like there's a God complex for some of these politicians, And I try not to become too attached to any politician or, and I have to remind myself with my music idols, they're not perfect either. And unfortunately, due to the recent, outbreak of, these goddamn perverts in Hollywood and the music industry, you don't want to get too attached to some of these people. And I'm not saying, automatically be like, oh, that guy's a scumbag or, without even knowing anything. But, it's, I'm going to fall in love with people's music, but I got to remind myself that they are human beings and they could have, done something terrible as is a politician or whatever, So going back to, once again, I'm deriving, going back to punk and the fight to power, there's some great messages in punk, I like the political aspect of be you. Punk shouldn't be a specific type of sound. It shouldn't be a specific, there shouldn't be, oh, you're not dressed like a punk, or you're dressed like a metalhead, oh, you can't be playing bass with a pick, the punk attitude goes all over. I'll play bass with a pick if I want to. I'll play with my fingers if I want to. I'll grow my hair out if I want to. I'll cut my hair if I want to. I'll do whatever the hell I want, unless it interferes with human rights. And that, I think that, I guess that's political in some aspect, not necessarily like, what do you think about this marijuana bill, stuff like that. Because a lot of that stuff I'm very ignorant on. There's a lot of stuff I don't know. If people were to ask me, it'd go right over my head because I just haven't been interested in it. Maybe I should be more interested in it. I don't know. But the stuff I can say politically is that you don't have to be part of a specific box or genre to be boxed into. Because if you are, stuff gets boring, Like the people in Black Flag, they may look like these, macho dudes. But Henry Rollins, if you talk to him, he said people would give him hell because he grew his hair out because they had the punk regime. You had to cut your hair. You couldn't have a shirt of the Allman Brothers or the Grateful Dead, And they might, I'm not even specifically interested in those groups, And I know, if you see my Facebook, I'll talk a lot of trash on music. But at the end of the day, if people like a certain type of music, they like it. They can't help that. They love what they love. And even the bands, I talk all the trash on. At the end of the day, even if I don't like that band, it's all fun and games. I'm just being a shit poster. I wish the guys well in Toto, or whatever annoys the hell out of me, or Fall Out Boy. I hope they're playing what they love and they're doing good, even if they play music that I don't like. And so that's kind of my philosophy, political philosophy, is the if there is a power I want to fight, it's just people being so meat-headed about stuff, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, oh, the way you're dressed, what? It's just pointless stuff people go on and on about, the rules. And if it's funny because a lot of people in punk make most of the rules, you know, and very, very close-minded. So I guess if there is a specific political ideology, philosophy I have is do what you want, unless you're like, going around stabbing people or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do what you want unless it affects someone else.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah, and then how do you sort of put that whole thing into your music? I mean, you have like the doom metal thing. It's very like powerful. How do these elements sort of go into your music?
Like the genres in the music I make?
Well, yeah. How does your spiritual view and your political view, how does that sort of seep its way into your music, if at all?
Like I was saying, kind of like usually through personal experience. Maybe like someone, said something where I disagree with him. That's very common in music. Or something that just provoked me to make a song about it. People, saying like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, or you can't mix these styles of music together. You can't like that band if you want to be in this club. That kind of stuff. That can, and I don't know if I've written any specific songs about that particular topic, but if something provokes me enough or something that is just frustrating me, I'll write a song about it. But usually when I write songs, like I write a lot of instrumental pieces. Usually it's just the passion. I just love creating music. I love the feel of playing guitar or the synthesizer. I love the idea of, what if I put the microphone here, or what if I record in this, my living room where there's a lot of reverb, stuff like that. So some political elements can creep into the music, or spiritual, but a lot of it is just, I just want to create some music, create some cool sounds,
Yeah, yeah.
And if I have something to say, I can incorporate that with the music. It just kind of depends what mood I'm in.
Sure,
There'll be some days where I'm like, oh, I'm so flustered about this. I got some things I want to say. And then other days I'll be like, I'm very happy. I just want to, the sonic element will come first. Maybe it'll be an instrumental. Maybe lyrics will be added to it.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. And then the last question I ask is, what advice do you have for people?
Well, it can be very difficult. It can be very vague for me to answer it, but no matter who you are mad at, try to be as forgiving as you can of them. And that's very difficult for me to say to other people, because there's people that do terrible things, just absolutely awful things. But even the people that have pissed me off, I'm trying to be more forgiving. I'm trying to be less angry, Do what you love and do it as much as you can, and try to get it done while you can, And there's some contradiction in me saying that, because I can be, not that I don't love doing music, but like sometimes a lot of times I'll be too tired to record, or I'm just not feeling it. And that's another thing, another philosophy I have is that if you're not feeling it, I wouldn't even try. Like and there are exceptions to that. But if let's say, you're, it depends. Like maybe you are on a schedule and you have to practice. That's, practice. If you've got a gig you need to work for, try your best to stay interested and practice as much as you can. But if you're doing a project on your own and you're not necessarily feeling it, I would say it's a little bit risky to force yourself to do that, because what you might release is soulless. And my goal with making music is to have fun, because that's what I'm here for musically. Make sure it has soul when I'm playing it, like I'm actually having a blast while I'm playing it.
Right.
And I understand I'm sure there's plenty of records that I listen to where the person, could have been on heroin. They didn't even care about the music when they made it, but it sounds good to me, so who knows, But sorry, it's a terrible thing to say.
No, it's fine.
But
People do drugs.
Just try to have fun when you make music, and if you're not feeling it for an original project, take a break. If you're having trouble with chords or technique, take a break, because you want to make music when you're happy and full of soul, or you're full of passion of some kind, or else you might churn out something that is a soulless creation. That can definitely happen. Even if you're Muddy Waters or, going back, Bach or something, I'm sure they had their moments where they just were not in the mood to write or play their parts. So always try to, when you churn something out, be in the mood for it, because it definitely has an effect on it. And there's a quote by James Jamerson I can paraphrase: if you're not feeling it, don't even pick it up. Like I said, there's exceptions. Be good to your family. Tell your parents, your grandma, that you love them. Try to not be so angry. Try to be safe. Look out for speed limits, stuff like that. It's a very dangerous world. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't be too paranoid, but watch out who you hang out with. You never know. There might be a wolf in sheep's clothing. Sorry, I'm not trying to be too spooky here. Stuff like that. That's what advice I can give to people.
Awesome. Jackson, thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you, Santiago. I appreciate it.
Where can we find you and your things?
Right now, we actually, I'm really excited to talk about this, even though it's kind of shameless self-promotion, but
this is the part to do it.
I appreciate it. The my band and I, we made an EP over the summer, and it is a band called Druggernaut, and we released an EP called Magnum Dopus, and you can thank my one of my best friends, Cody Felker, for coming up with both of those names, and he also wrote a bunch of the songs, and it was a very beautiful collaboration between me, Cody, and my friend Zach on guitar. Cody did vocals, I did bass and backup vocals. I got to write 2 songs on the album as like vocals and then bass part wise and then some of the guitar parts. And I forgot to mention, forgive me, and Janos Wozniak, who is a student here at ACM, very talented musician. Beautiful person. I love working with him. He played drums on this EP as a session musician pretty much. Anywho, we combined the idea, like Cody would come up with, he would originally have some riffs he wrote when he was like 14. He wrote most of the lyrics of the songs. My friend Zach came up with guitar parts, riff ideas, stuff like that. I came up with some riff ideas. I came up with, 2 of the lyrics for the songs I wrote. And then I did some backup vocals on it. And I engineered it too, which is weird to think, because it was my first time really mixing stuff. We did it on we did the whole thing on my MacBook on GarageBand. It was very frustrating in some parts. But it was my first time mixing and being like, and I went into it as an amateur thing because I was like, okay, I think this sounds good. We'll turn my bass up a little bit. We'll turn the guitar up, maybe turn down the drums a little bit on this song, maybe turn them up, stuff like that.
Right.
Just playing it by ear pretty much. So that was my first time doing that. And we just now got the CDs out from a group in Tulsa called Suck It Records. Yes, Suck It Records. They put out our beloved Magnum Dopus on Bandcamp as well as a CD copy. And if you would like a CD copy, they are $10. Just let me know or my friend Cody Felker know on our Druggernaut page. We got it up on Facebook. I'm very happy to have that CD out. I'm working on an EP right now of some solo stuff like I was saying earlier. I'm having a blast. And I guess it's pretty much for the beloved salesman part,
Right. And I mean, if you want people to follow you on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, what's your...
Well, my first advice is don't follow me on Twitter because it's Shitpost Central. Poor Santiago already knows that. It's the most incoherent dribble you'll ever see and hear.
You're apologizing to me for shitposting because...
Yours is innocent and wholesome. Mine is I don't know, if the Butthole Surfers had a Facebook or Twitter account, I was going to say the Facebook page for the Druggernaut it's just spelled Druggernaut, DRUGGERNAUT, and I believe that should direct you in the right place. And also, I'd like to give a shout out for my friend Jamie Fuentes, very talented artist. He loves comics and stuff like that. He did our artwork, and I thought that was so cool. And it's so cool getting to collaborate with all those people and everything. So that's the Facebook page for that, and in the near future, hopefully in the near future, you can expect this solo EP, and the working title is Ukraine.
Cool.
So that will be out some point in the future.
Yeah. Do you want me to put a Juggernaut track on the end of this podcast?
Sure, if you're okay with it.
Yeah, which one?
Oh, maybe we have a song called Viva Psycho. It's the last track.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff on that.
Yeah. All right. So, again, thank you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, I'm Santiago Ramones.
I'm Jackson Fritts.
You can find all the stuff that I do on my website, santiagoramones.com. I make music as well as this podcast. You can find all the stuff on my website. You can download or pay what you want for the stuff that's on my Bandcamp. And I always end my podcast with my 3 things. They shape my life philosophy. Those 3 things are: love never fails, it's going to be okay, I might be wrong. So this is Viva Psycho by Druggernaut.
Psycho.